Hi guys, and welcome to a new video. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Ollie and this is Turner's Workshop. And in today's video, I'm going to be having a look at this little Suzuki generator. This is an SE500A model. Now, I didn't even know Suzuki made generators until I found this on the Facebook Marketplace. It was a freebie. I went and picked it up and it had been in the guy's garage for around 25 years. So it might take a little bit of work to get this going. And I thought it would make a nice little video about this generator because I couldn't find any information online about it whatsoever. So if you know anything about these Suzuki generators, please let us know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Before we strip this machine apart, let's just do a quick walk around and look at the features. This is an SE500A model. 500A doesn't correspond to how many amps it produces because 500 amps would be quite a sizable machine. This is actually a 110 volt output, 3.6 amp machine, a maximum output power of 500 watts. So we've got this 110 commando socket on the front for the AC circuit, and then this is our DC circuit down here for charging batteries, and we've got an output current of 8.3 amps at 12 volts. 2 circuit breakers for protecting the circuits, oil level warning light, and an engine kill switch. We've got the dipstick under here, so it's a 4-stroke machine. On this side, we've got a couple of dials. This one's for adjusting the engine RPM, or the output frequency of the generator. So the higher the RPM, the higher the output frequency. The fuel taps down here, it's quite stiff, but it does work still. And the choke. We've got to be very careful when working on this machine because it does contain asbestos, and we don't want to be breathing in any of the asbestos fibres because that could cause us problems later on in life. I seem to be collecting these vintage generators. Over there we've got the Honda EX650 suitcase generator, and now we've got this nice little Suzuki machine, and people call me a hoarder, I'm not sure why. Down here we've got the air filter, and this is the exhaust here. On the top we've got this cute little fuel level gauge. I don't think it's got any fuel in it if it's been sitting in the garage for 25 years. I think the guy did say that he put some fuel in it and it started leaking out the bottom, so perhaps we've got some perished hoses inside there. Who knows. Spark plug lives in there, and then on this side we've just got this ventilation panel, 83 decibels. It's fairly quiet. Before I go any further, I just want to make sure that it's got some oil in it. So let's pop the dipstick out. Yeah, that's got oil. On the label on the top, it says that the engine will stop automatically when the oil level becomes too low. So that's a good safety feature there. So it means that it hasn't been running without oil in it. It doesn't have any information as to which oil it should take, but I'd say it's probably an SAE 30. Because this machine contains asbestos, I'm going to treat it slightly different to what I typically would. I'm not going to just go ahead and strip it all apart because I don't want to expose myself to asbestos. As much as I like this little machine, I don't want to risk my life for it. So I'm going to do my fault finding from the outside, and I'm going to start off with the 3 fundamentals. Has it got a spark? We're going to look at the ignition system, and then we're going to look at the fuel system. Are we getting fuel through to the carburetor? Are we getting any leaks? Do we need to replace any hoses? And then finally, has it got compression there? We can check that already just by pulling it over, and I can feel there's a nice bit of resistance there. So there is compression. So we can tick that one off already. I'm now going to look at whether the engine's getting a spark and does the ignition system work. So let's switch it on and take the plug out. It's a 19mm socket for this spark plug. The spark plug itself looks relatively clean. That's a good sign. I'm going to be using this spark plug tester for checking the ignition system. In my opinion, this is the quickest and easiest method, and I'll put a link to one of these in the description below if you need to get one. You can alternatively just look for the spark across the plug, but it's often very hard to see, whereas with this you get the lamp light up if you're getting a spark, and I'll show you that now. So what we do is get the spark plug lead, plug the spark plug tester into here, make sure it's in there properly, and then on the other end we connect our spark plug cover it up with this insulation so you don't get a shock. And then we're going to short out or ground out the end of this spark plug on the engine. Just rest it on there like that. Now if I pull the engine over, we should see this lamp light up if the ignition system's working as it should be. Perfect. And if we switch off the ignition switch at the front of the generator, we can make sure that the engine's going to shut off when we turn it off. So we've got good compression, our ignition system's working. So now we need to have a look at the fuel system to make sure we're getting fuel into the carburetor and that our carb's nice and clean. So I'm going to strip that apart now. This is where the air filter is on the back of the generator. So let's take this off. Okay. There's not much of an air filter there, just this thin piece of foam which is all disintegrating. We might have to make our own air filter once we've got this running, but it'll be fine without one for now. So let's put that to one side. Our carburetor lives up in here, so we're gonna have to take off this panel to get to the carburetor. And we don't actually have to strip any of this apart, so I'm not sure where the asbestos is, probably under here, maybe some heat shields. Now, I'm going to start off by draining the fuel out. So on the bottom of this carburetor, we've got a screw, and that's a valve for opening up the bottom of the carb. So we can actually drain the fuel out from this hose here. Just put this container down here. And if we open this valve on the bottom of the carb, should, in theory, allow the fuel to drain out the tank. I'm going to have to strip it down a bit more, so let's take the panel off of the other end. This is a very well made machine. Unlike the modern rubbish you get these days, it's all plastic and everything breaks easily. I was expecting there to be a connection on the fuel tank up here somewhere, but it's actually around the front of the engine, and the hose runs all the way around the front and up here to the fuel tap. So if we remove this hose, this may get a bit messy. I'm going to have to blow the tank through to get the fuel out. This fuel's showing signs that it's got lots of sediment in it from the tank, little bits of rust. So I'm going to take the tank off and give it a thorough clean. So to remove the tank, we've just got a couple more screws on the front of the generator to take off. One here and one here. And I'm going to take these bottom two out as well. So the fuel hose is connected here and it runs all the way down, round and back up to the fuel tap. It looks like it's being crushed against this wire, which isn't ideal. Let's remove whatever this is. Spill catcher. I'm going to put my finger over that just to stop it spilling everywhere. While I've got the fuel tank off, I'm going to go give it a thorough clean inside and out. If we have a look inside the tank, you can see there's quite a bit of sediment build up in there. I'm not using anything fancy, just a bit of washing up liquid and a scrubbing brush. Right, to try and clean this fuel tank out, I'm actually just going to use a little bit of dishwasher salt. It's slightly abrasive, so if we put some of these in here, we should be able to shake it all around, and it should hopefully get all the gunk off from the inside of this tank. Give it a good shake. make sure you get all the dishwasher crystals out of there. And then you can leave it to dry somewhere. We've got a spring behind here for adjusting the RPM, so we need to remove that. So this is a sediment screen, or a little fuel filter. So let's unscrew this. The valve works. And this up in here is a sediment screen. So I'm going to try and remove this rubber gasket without damaging it. And I'm just going to clear this screen. It does actually come out. Oh, it's a little bit damaged. To take the carburetor off, we have to remove this rubber boot. And this is the intake boot. And then we've got these nuts here which hold the carburetor to the engine. That gasket looks in good shape. We can reuse that. We've got this little spring up here. Disconnect. And then the carburetor should just slide off. And the inlet of the carburetor comes in the bottom there. So we need to disconnect these hoses. Okay, that one was on the left, so I'm going to put it over there. Just make sure we put everything back where it's supposed to be. That was on the right, on the top. And then I'm going to remove the bowl off the bottom of the carburetor. So this carburetor has definitely seen better days. So we're going to give it a thorough clean and we should be able to bring it back to life. Just look at the dirt inside there. So let's start by taking this main jet out. Hopefully we can get it out in one piece. Yep, that's good. It's a good start. And that's completely blocked up. So I'm just going to get some carb cleaner or brake cleaner and just try and open up the hole. You should be able to remove this pin to take the float out, but I can't actually remove the pin. It's well and truly glued in there. No, it doesn't want to budge. We may have to just put it in the ultrasonic cleaner as it is. I'm just going to use a couple of caps of this heavy duty degreaser as a detergent. And then some boiling hot water. Maximum time. That should do it. I've given it 3 rounds of the ultrasonic treatment. And just look at the results. Let's try and remove the emulsion tube and give that a clean. I should have done this before we put it in the ultrasonic cleaner, but it's more than likely going to be stuck in there. Yep, that doesn't want to come out. Take the float off. So in the top of the carb, we've got this tube here. Let's take that one out. Just poke through these passages to make sure they're clear. squirt here and through here. This is where the fuel comes into the carburetor. And now we just need to try and get that emulsion tube out of the centre, but it's really stuck in there. It doesn't want to budge. I think we'll have to try and clean it in situ and just hope that it runs, because that is not coming out of there. Just get some compressed air and give it a good blowout. In all the little holes. So the needle valve goes onto the float there. And then this goes in there. And then the pin goes through. The main jet goes back in there. So not forget this rubber gasket, and then the float bulb can go on. And we want this to be facing over this side, so we can drain out the carburetor when we're not using it. Let's nip that up. We have to stretch this linkage over to get it on. Need to try and get the spring over. That goes through the same hole as that linkage. And that just tucked down there as well. This plate. That's the feed into the carb. And then there's a spring down here somewhere for adjusting the engine RPM. So that has to be connected. There we go. And the fuel hose in the bottom. Hopefully we've got enough. I had to cut a little piece off the other end, but it should be fine. Okay. Snip the end off of this drain hose and put it on the bottom of the carb. We can refit this rubber intake boot. Before I put all the casing back on, I'm just going to put some fuel in it to make sure that we haven't got any leaks. Have a good look round for leaks. I think we're all right. Let's turn the fuel tap on. And that should start filling the carburetor up now. Let's get all the casing back on and then we can try it out. We have got a leak. It's not good. Where's it leaking? So the carburetor has been overflowing and it's leaking down into the air filter. So that's good. It means we've got fuel up to the carburetor, so all these lines are nice and clear. However, it's not supposed to be leaking out the carb, and that suggests that the needle valve isn't seating properly or it's not set up correctly. So I need to take the carburetor off again. So as the fuel comes into the carburetor through here, it fills up the float bowl and the float rises up, and once it gets full, it closes the valve to stop any more fuel coming in. But what's happening is the float's rising up and it's still allowing the carb to fill up, and so it's flooding out of the top of the carb. Let's take this pin back out. If you have a look at the end of this needle valve here, you can see that little bit of dirt on there. that could be enough to stop the valve from closing off, and that's why the carburetor is overfilling. There we go, I've opened the fuel tap up. The carburetor should have filled up by now, and we haven't got any fuel spilling out of the carb, so that's fixed that problem. The casing's all back on, and this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Will it actually run after 25 years sitting in somebody's garage? Hopefully it does. We've checked to make sure we've got a spark, we've thoroughly cleaned the carburetor, and we sorted out that overflowing carb issue by cleaning the needle valve. All that's left for us to do is to take it outside and give it a test and make sure that we've got an output from this commando socket down here as well, because it's all well and good if the engine runs, but if we haven't got an output, it's a pretty useless generator. So we've got a 17 volt DC output. That is more than enough for charging 12 volt batteries. So there we go. I hope you've learned a thing or two from this video and you enjoyed watching it. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And if you click that little alarm bell, you'll get notifications when I post new videos. I'm really pleased that we managed to save this. And it's a fantastic little machine. It's very quiet. It takes no effort at all to start it. And hopefully this will be a reliable little machine going forward, providing that we look after the carburetor and we make sure that we drain the fuel out once we've finished using it, like I didn't do with the Honda EX650 over there, and now I need to strip that one down and clean it out. So that's another video. Hopefully I'll see you again soon. Cheers guys, bye for now.